Here are our butterflies. Got this guy hanging out, he's eating. Let's see if we can get him there. He's eating his butterfly. He's eating his butterfly. He's eating his orange. The butterfly is eating his orange. These guys are hanging out. They are all ready. They are ready to fly. Yes, they are. They're ready to be let go. So in the link of this video, you're going to see that there's a link so you can see the video of them being let go. I'm trying to get rid of this glare here. There we go. So your activity today is in the comments. You're going to make a list of everything that we've learned. So this video is going to kind of go over everything we've learned, in case you don't want to click through everything. And then you're going to make a list. We learned a lot of things. Can you believe it's already been a month? It's been a whole month. It's been 4 weeks that we've been doing this. So we want to know everything that you learned. Before we got the caterpillars, you made a list of the things you already knew, and then what you had questions about, what you wanted to learn. And then now you can go over that list and see, did you learn what you had questions about? And did you learn even more things? Make a list of all the stuff that you've learned. And then do you have any more questions? And how can you answer those questions? You can keep learning even after these are done. So make a list, and you can put that in our comments. And there's a butterfly packet on the e-learning that goes with this. You can click and you can put the life cycles of butterflies together and ladybugs, and there's some other activities in there, okay? So we're going to go through. Do you remember when we talked about animals being the same and different? These guys are the same. They all kind of look the same. These are all the animals that were the same. So your activity was you're going to look for pictures of butterflies and caterpillars, and you're going to see if they are the same. If all caterpillars and all the butterflies were the same. And then we also talked about what size the caterpillars were. So do you remember that? Do you remember if all butterflies were the same and all caterpillars were the same? Well, here we talked about dogs. Those are all dogs, right? But they look very, very different. Same thing with cats. Those are all cats, but they look very, very different. So that was the same thing we found out about caterpillars, right? They look very different than butterflies. So your activity then was to think of some other animals that look different or the same, and you can describe them. And we talked about how caterpillars, they were still small. They were growing, but they were still small. And we went over that they came out of an egg, and they had to what? What did they have to do? They had to eat. They had to eat and eat and eat and eat so they could grow and get bigger. And they hung upside down. And then what? What happens? You know. Your activity was to find out, but I bet you could tell me. What happens? They make their cocoon, right? And after they make their cocoon, what happens? They come out. The butterfly comes out. So then we compared them. We compared how they grew. And your activity was to draw them. You used the penny to see how small they were, their shape of their house, and draw how they were hairy. Right here we had a little video on how you could draw them. And then we went over again how they came out of an egg, they ate, they got big, they hung upside down, they made their cocoons, and then they were transformed. They changed inside into a butterfly. And we talked about how much they were growing because they were eating. You could see the lines, how they were growing and getting bigger. And we talked about how now they weren't just small, now they were medium because we were using that quarter. So they weren't small anymore, now they were medium. And we talked about what was an insect, and to talk about how they have 3 parts of their bodies and 6 legs. And we talked about bees, and bees have the wings, and you can see the 6 legs and the 2 wings. And there was a grasshopper. So you were supposed to Google and search for the different insects and see what they have in common. Did everybody have wings? Do they all have the same body parts? Do they all eat the same things? You were supposed to make a list of what you found out about all the bugs. And we said, do we have butterflies yet? No, they were still caterpillars, and they were medium. All right, they were still medium. We talked about it. They had stripes and they had spots. And they were still small, they weren't long. What color was their body? Was it red or was it black? Were their bodies rough or hairy and bumpy, or were they smooth? So you had to find out about another insect that changes. Caterpillars aren't the only insect that changes. So you were going to read about ladybugs and find out about how ladybugs change. So then we said, did they make their cocoons yet? Nope. We looked at a video of how they were growing and what size they were. And we asked, what did you learn about ladybugs? And we learned that ladybugs came out of eggs, and then they had the little larvae, and they ate a lot, and then they made their cocoon, and they changed into a ladybug. We talked about how are they the same? Well, both ladybugs and and butterflies come from eggs. They both make cocoons. And how are they different? Well, they look quite different there. In different colors, right? So then we talked about insects that help our earth, right? They do different things to help our earth. So we talked about bees and butterflies, and your activity was to look at how they help us. Ladybugs would eat the aphids, and bees and butterflies help pollinate or make more flowers. And then bees made something. You were supposed to find out. Do you remember what bees make? What do bees make? Do you remember? We talked about, again, how they were growing. You see how he's bigger than the quarter now. What is he doing to grow? Was he running? Was he playing? Or was he eating? What was he doing? He was eating, right? That's what he's got to do here. He's got to eat and eat and eat and eat to grow, to make his cocoon so he can change and turn into a butterfly. So butterflies help plants, right? They help make more plants. So we have lots and lots of plants. And the ladybugs, they eat those bugs that hurt the plants. And then what about bees? Well, bees make food for us. They make honey. I sure like honey. Bees help make more plants too. They help make more plants too. So then we talked about animals like to eat these helpful insects, so they have to camouflage. We talked about what camouflage means. It means what animals hide. And we read a book about how animals camouflage, how they hide. And you were going to go and find some examples of how insects camouflage. And there was a video there if you wanted to. Then we said, do we have cocoons yet? No, we didn't. So what are they doing to grow? Are they playing, eating, or running? And you know that they were eating. We talked about how they were getting kind of big now. Now they were bigger than the quarter. They were getting as big as the clip. So we talked about, are these animals the same or are they different? How about these guys? These guys are different, right? These guys are the same, and these guys are different. So are all the butterflies the same? No, the butterflies are very different, right? How about caterpillars? Are caterpillars all the same? Nope, they're very different, right? So your activity, let's go to the English one, was to read about the very hungry caterpillar and then talk about how our caterpillars were the same as the caterpillar from the story and how they were different. Okay, and we asked, do we have cocoons? What do we have? And we talked about how they were growing again, what size the caterpillars were. And they're very, very big because they were getting ready to make their cocoons. And let's find the English one. Your activity was to draw what those caterpillars look like and how big they were and how you're going to draw their spikes and their house. And you could use the coins in the clip to see how big they were. And then to read the story about the very impatient caterpillar. And that was a funny story because one of our caterpillars was very impatient, so much that he knocked his friend down. And we talked about the caterpillars were hairy, they weren't smooth, that they were black, that they were very long now, and they had stripes and spots, right? So then we said, what do we have? Do we have cocoons? And we finally had cocoons, right? We talked about how they were growing and changing and what they were going to do. And then our activity was, now that they made their cocoons, what was going to come out, and you had to see, you were going to make a guess and see how long they were going to stay in their cocoons. So did you get Did you have your answer right? You had to make a guess. Were you right about how long they were going to stay in the cocoons? And then we said, do we have butterflies yet? No, we still had cocoons. And we said, what are they doing inside of there? Are they running, eating, or changing? And they were changing, right? They're changing. And we talked about how much they changed and how big they got, and they hung upside down and they made their chrysalises. And what's going to happen after the cocoons, after they made their chrysalis, after they made their cocoon? And your activity was to draw what their cocoons look like now, how many there were, how big they were, the shape of their house, and it keep talking about how they were changing. And then we also read another book about the animals that like to eat helpful insects, and we reminded ourselves about what it means to camouflage. That means to hide, right? We read a book about animals that like to eat our helpful insects. And we asked, do we have butterflies? And yes, we finally had butterflies. And we talked about what that red stuff is. So, are the caterpillars red? Were they red or orange? No, right? So that's what's coming out. That's the extra tint. That's not blood. That's the extra paint. That's the extra color that they used so that they could change into the beautiful butterflies with wings. And you can see the difference. There's the dark cocoons where they were inside with all that extra color, the extra paint. And then the ones over here, they're empty. And that's why they're not as dark anymore. And we went over how they changed. They were little and they kept eating and getting bigger and bigger. They hung upside down and they made their cocoons. And then they came out and they were butterflies, right? And they're hairy. We talked about how they were the same and different. So they're the same because they both have tongues, right? We said, do they have tongues? Yes, we both have tongues. We're the same because we have tongues, but they're different because they look different. And the same thing, we both have heads. We're the same because we both have heads, but they're different because they look different. We both have feet or legs, but we're different because they look different. We talked a lot in detail in the video. How about antenna? Do you have antenna on your head? Are we the same because we have antenna? No, we're different. How about wings? Touch your back. Do you have any wings? No, we don't have wings, right? So your activity was, after learning about butterflies and ladybugs and bees, we were going to learn about ants and how they worked together and did some different jobs. So then you were going to put in the next video your comments about what you learned about the different things that ants do. And we reviewed that this was not blood, right? It's the extra color. The caterpillars did not have any red or orange. So the extra color coming out is what the butterflies needed to be able to change colors. So there's those beautiful wings you can see has orange on them. Then we talked about how many days we'll be studying the butterflies, how many days were they caterpillars, how many days were there cocoons, right? So that was a calendar to start talking about answering those questions. And you had to draw them, and you had to talk about how much they've changed, and then look at the calendar and answer those questions, and then start looking at the videos and make a list of everything that you've learned. And we went over here how much they've grown and changed, and their parts of their body, right? Because that's all the stuff that you drew. And then that brings us back to today, where we are learning all these things. And I want you to put in the comments what your favorite thing was and some things that you learned so that we can tell them. And then in the link, I'm going to put the video. It's going to be a bilingual video of me letting go of the butterflies. Okay? I'll see you guys soon.